Good evening, and welcome to our second live stream Parents Advisory Council meeting. We have a lot to cover tonight, and I think we will hopefully answer some of the questions that were entered into the chat room last week. And next week on Thursday, we also plan to do a combined Board of Education PAC meeting where we will have representatives from the various departments who will be here directly to answer questions, both from the board, from the PAC, and from our audience as well. So, as you can see, we have our members of our Parents Advisory Council. We include students in that organization as well. And we also have members of our school community quickly. So I think, last week we did introduce everybody on the PAC. I think we do have a lot to cover tonight. So I think we'll go right to the presentation if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Skeels. All right, so tonight, so again, just as a review here, what is the Parents Advisory Council? And I think our PAC is a group, a representative group of parents. The key operative word here is they are volunteers. They volunteer to serve as an advisory council to the superintendent and the district on issues key to education and district operations. They are an advisory group. They are not like the Board of Education, also a group of volunteers. The PAC is just a tremendous resource to me and the school district because they do provide valuable input on important district matters. So in essence here, they this time obviously COVID-19, remote learning during COVID-19 and the subsequent plans to re-enter have been occupying the PAC. They have been meeting weekly or bi-weekly since June 4th to provide input. They gave us valuable input on the learning experiences during COVID-19, which we will employ when we design our remote learning going forward. And I'd also like to note too that PAC does contain student representatives as well. So many thanks to the members of our Parents Advisory Council for their wonderful work on behalf of the school district and our children and families. This represents a timeline of where we've been. So on June 4th, PAC meetings began to discuss school reopening possibilities. And we were doing that because we were doing that essentially without the guidance. And so the guidance didn't come until really about 6 weeks later. And that was the first guidance was issued by the New York State Department of Health, followed by guidance on the 16th, 3 days later on reopening by the New York State Education Department. And we have a deadline of July 31st, 2020. We have to post our plans for reopening on our website. We attest to the fact that we have these plans and that they are on our website. They are not pending SED review and approval. So we submit an attestation that we have done it and that we have faithfully followed the guidance. And then our plan is there and available for public review. The following week, and that would be the week beginning with Monday the 3rd, technically the governor's office said starting August 1st. I don't think there will be a weekend announcement of this, but the governor will announce his plan regarding the reopening of schools. So you can see the timeline is rather short. The next slide talks about the Governor Cuomo's reopening metrics, and these are the metrics that the governor has established to allow schools to reopen. So New York State has been divided into regions, and you're probably well aware of that. in the reopening process when we went through phase 1, phase 2, 3, and 4. Different regions were allowed to open at different rates. The capital region is a large region. It encompasses, parts of the North Country, parts of the region west into Schoharie County. Those are, in addition to Columbia County, Rensselaer County, counties to the south and the east. It's quite a substantial region. So we can reopen if we're in phase 4, if the daily infection rate remains at 5% or lower over a 14-day average. We will remain closed if the regional infection rate is greater than 9% over a 7-day average. So these are the clear metrics that the governor has established to date to allow schools to remain open or to remain closed. The metrics will be monitored. They will be monitored continually. They'll be analyzed by the governor's office, local elected officials. So that would include in this county, County Executive McCoy, and the Albany County Department of Health, headed by Dr. Elizabeth Whalen. And so we need to be flexible, and we need to be prepared to change and be aware that circumstances can change and that we have to adopt and adapt our plans accordingly. So last week, Friday, after the PAC meeting, we put up a survey. We had about 3,700 participants in the survey. So we're going to share some of the results of that survey right now. And this is the elementary school survey results. So at the elementary level, the question was, we're looking at a model where we would be able to have students in K-6 school on a daily basis with social distancing guidelines in place. Would you be comfortable sending your child to school? 62% of the respondents answered yes, 38% no. Per state guidance, the next question, students who take district transportation will be required to wear masks on the bus and until they reach their classrooms. Please select the category or categories your elementary student would fall under. So of those individuals who said that they would be coming to school, 57.7% said they would take 5, and 4% stated that the student would walk or bike. At the junior high school, again, we mentioned we're looking at a hybrid model with all students having the opportunity for in-person and remote instruction. Would you be comfortable sending your child to school? Of the respondents, 65.4% responded yes, and 34.6% responded no. With regard to the transportation question, 55.4% said they would take district transportation, 41.9% said the parent would drive, and 2.7% said the student would walk or bike. At the high school, again, we were looking at a hybrid model with students having the opportunity for in-person instruction and remote instruction. We asked the question again, would you be comfortable sending your child to school? Yes, 76.8%. You can see that's a bump up from the other groups of people. So it was 76.8% and 23.3% said no. On transportation, 53.3% of high school parents surveyed said their child, if the child elected to come to school in person, would take district transportation. 30.3% said the parent would drive, 4.4% said the student would walk or bike, or 12% said that the student would drive themselves to school. So we'll now take a look at our reopening planning. We mentioned last week that we presented an option, and Ms. Skills will be presenting another option as part of this segment here. But let's go to some other elements of the plan here, first of all. So what is our planning process? So we are required per the governor's guidelines and those of the other agencies there, we're required to prepare options for remote, in-person, and hybrid learning. And these are based on the governor's guidelines, the New York State Department of Health guidelines, the New York State Education Department guidance, and guidance from the CDC. We have also looked at other states' reopening plans as well. And I think the imperative here is to remember that no option is perfect. All options require compromises. All options require creative thinking, and options, when you get into them, solutions often create other problems. So we are engaged in constant problem solving. But I think at the end of the day, what is our goal? Our goal is, in presenting these options, to have our people review the plans and review them from their frame of expertise, provide input, look at the positives, the negatives, and I think we are concerned with the twin pillars of safety. So we want to provide the safest environment possibly and educationally sound. We want to have those two pillars really to support our plan for reopening. So we're going to talk about the health and safety procedures that we will put in here, and we're going to touch on as many as we can. So, in our plan, we will require daily health checks and screenings, and this will include daily temperature checks for all students and staff. Per the guidance, this can be done at home with required daily attestations. So the daily attestations are essentially the student has been symptom-free, the student has not exhibited a fever, the student has not traveled, the student has not been exposed. Many of you in your workplaces have had to do these attestations. The baseline that has guidance that has been provided, any student with a temperature greater than 100 degrees must be denied entry into the facility or sent directly to a dedicated area prior to being picked up. So we have to have a health office, but we also have a dedicated area for individuals who are thought to be symptomatic. In addition to that, we will have daily screening attestations for all adults. The district has designed its own internal app where essentially our employees can go and they can respond to the questions appropriately, but that's that's where they are doing that right now. We are actually looking to look at commercial apps. In fact, one has been designed by Capital Region BOCES. That app is really geared toward a bigger audience. It is also guaranteeing the privacy that would be specified under Education Law 2D. So the daily health checks. There was a question basically on the honor system. The guidance offered by SED was that this could be done at home and that there could be an attestation process. We are not saying that we will not do temperature screening at school where we see it's necessary or appropriate. So then we would also be abiding by the 6-foot social distancing measure in all our classrooms and common spaces. So that is the number that we have been advised to do, and we will follow that number, obviously. And we will require face coverings for all students and staff. We're going to provide the training in the use of the mask. We will provide for everyone mask breaks throughout the day. If students and staff cannot wear a mask, they will be required to provide documentation of a medical exemption. So health and safety, and some of you may have seen this article in the Times Union. So Guth DeConzo Engineers, and we have New York State Emergency Research and Development Grant, Energy Research and Development Authority grant, who did an analysis and was focusing on indoor air quality improvements. We installed the MERV 13. We ordered them and we will be installing them by the school. The MERV 13 filters, they are recommended to combat COVID-19 virus transmission. We're also exploring, and with the recommendations of the firm, UV air side. So we're looking at better airflow, making our units more efficient, air ionization. Essentially, we're going to review this to see if it is effective. UVGI, that's ultraviolet, germ irradiation, I think is the name of the technology. And it would be looking at evaluating that for high-risk areas such as locker rooms and cafeterias, working at improved air exchange, and looking at the air conditioning and heating research group recommendations to incorporate such, and looking at modifications for building management systems. One of the CDC recommendations was that systems be turned on 2 hours before and 2 hours after building occupancy to improve air quality. So we are looking at all those technologies to improve air quality as well. In addition to health and safety, we will be providing hand sanitizer in all classrooms and in common spaces. That's per the guidance. We will also be providing all disposable wipes, cleaners to faculty and staff in areas that are common use and on surfaces such as keyboards, desks, remote control. They will be wiped down before and after use. We will follow the protocols for hand hygiene. We are also we will be implementing cleaning and disinfecting procedures in accordance with CDC and Department of Health guidelines. All classrooms, common spaces, transportation will be subjected to that. Mr. Mark Wiegert, who is our Director of Custodial Services, has worked with his staff. They've been trained on proper cleaning procedures and disinfecting schedules. Buildings will be deeply cleaned and sanitized every day. Common bathroom areas and common areas will be cleaned, sanitized throughout the day, and we'll have a cleaning and sanitizing log that will be maintained by the day and lead custodian in each of the buildings. This is an example of some of these protocols. So you can see these are the tasks that a custodian would do. And so then that person would have to sign off that these tasks have been performed, and that is per the guidance as well. And again, with the restroom, these would be the cleaning protocols: dust, disinfect door push plate, jams, kick plates, door hardware, frequently touched surfaces, check the lights, wet mop the floor, secure the windows and doors, disinfect the trash receptacles and their containers, clean vents, doors, and jams, pour water down floor drains at least 1 gallon a week. And again, the person would sign off on that. Let's go to the next one here. And again, offices, meeting rooms, common areas, cleaning protocols, vacuum the office suites. You can see dust, all the procedures there. Clean the glass door frequently, clean the whiteboards, disinfect all high-touch surfaces with disinfecting sprayers. Do that multiple times throughout the day and throughout the evening. All those common high-touch areas, check the lights, secure the window and doors, and dust all flat surfaces. So these are the protocols. And again, you can see the protocols there, very similar for offices, meeting room, common areas. Personal protective equipment, PPE. So we have masks, we have disposable masks, we have more durable masks such as the N95 for perhaps our health office staff. We have washable masks, we will have face shields. We will be supplying gowns, disposable gloves, scan thermometers, hand sanitizer dispensers, stations, disinfecting spray, wipes, paper towels. These will all be provided. We're projecting an expense of $418,200 for that, to provide masks for per the guidelines in the document. The cost of that is about $250,000. And so that's our projected expense for 2021. And then we will then have an actual expense that we looked at from the March to June time. We did some buying ahead, and that was $92,650. So we did buying ahead, and that was the additional cleaning products we bought during the last part of the school year.
Mr. Core, there are some questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to address those right now before we get to the next section about
yeah, I'm seeing them pop up, and so sure, we can take some time on that right now. So let's take a look at them. Okay. So using an honor system for temperature, that doesn't seem like the best option. I think it is the option that most schools are doing. At this point in time, that is what is most actually being recommended. It does not mean that we will not be scanning, and we will also have to make determinations of individuals who do not attest. So we're going to be working even further on those processes and procedures.
And Mr. Core, I think that was a change from what we presented last week, since we got clarification. So families, we have to, on a random basis, sample families to do the attestation, the 4 questions about have you been out of the country, exposed to COVID, et cetera. But what is new from last week is that families will every day have to log on to the app and answer yes or no about their child having a temperature of greater than 100 degrees. And then that app will be providing us so that we know parents will have to do it by a certain time. Then we'll have a report. So then we will be making sure that anyone that we don't have a report on, if they come to school, our nurses will take their temperatures at the school door. So that is a bit of a change from what we presented last week and in line with the guidance we've been presented.
So I'm looking here, I'm going from the bottom up here. It's a schedule for cleaning. So the high touch areas will be cleaned throughout the day, and there will be a significant cleaning after every group leaves. So Ms. Skeels later on will be presenting a plan here where students will, we have a AM shift and a PM shift. And so there will be an hour in between where the building will be cleaned. And that is what our Director of Custodial Services estimated for the building, for those rooms to be cleaned. So really a major cleaning after every night or after every usage. What happens if a student turns up without a mask on the bus or is dropped off without a mask? We will have masks to supply for that student. So that student will be given a mask. How quickly is the SY going through the PPE? Mr. Barden, how quick is that process? It's been going very smoothly, correct?
Yeah, it's been going smoothly. We have been utilizing all of the, gloves is something that we've been going through fairly quickly. Also the cleaning supplies, but right now, as we're seeing the use of all the PPE, it's actually going as planned right now. So we have a sufficient amount of PPE. So we kind of ordered on the appropriate pace, I guess you could say.
Yep. And, you know, in terms of the screening process, that has been going very quickly too.
Yeah, the
correct?
screening process has gone extremely smoothly. Students are screened prior to getting on the bus. Students who are dropped off by a parent get screened in a different location in the parking lot, and then there's a drop-off zone, so that goes fairly smoothly. And you know, our staff are also accustomed to you know, utilizing the app prior to coming to work as well, and frankly, anyone who comes in the building. So that's been going quite well.
So Karen asks where there'll be microbial materials be put on the handles. I can say that the handles are a high touch area and will be cleaned. I can't give you a definitive answer to that, and I will get back to you on that. Sujatha, no touch doors at the entrance. I think the goal is we will keep the doors open and we will keep the classroom doors open wherever possible to minimize touching and infection spread. If people are on a medical exemption, will they still be allowed to attend? Per the guidance, we have to let those students attend the school. Percentage of families who use district transportation prior to the pandemic. I believe it was around 70%. I can get back to you with the breakdown on that though. And will there be a tutorial video? Yes, we will provide tutorials for a number of things. When we come up with you know, whatever we're going to use to do the attestation, we certainly will provide that. And a tutorial video would absolutely be a good way to do that. Dr. Zaida mentions that it takes 5 seconds for her son to be screened when getting on the bus. And that's good to know. We did have a conversation on that today. So I know that there is some concern about screening, and you know, we will continue to take a look at that. Shall we go on to the next slide?
Sure.
So now I will turn it over to Ms. Skeels, and she has another scheduling option, which actually I think is going to result in some of our students getting more in-person school contact. So Ms. Skeels.
Thank you, Mr. Kaur. So as we started, we arranged this presentation tonight around our 2 pillars, the first being safety. So we've given you more details about every step we're undertaking to ensure that our buildings are as safe as possible. And now we want to look at what we continue to let the schedules evolve as we continue to build what we hope will be the best program under the circumstances. So as Mr. Kaur mentioned, and just to be clear with everyone, we must, as a New York State school, develop a plan for in-person, remote, and a hybrid. And something we want to be clear about is in-person instruction for all students daily is not possible in this district if we are to adhere to the social distancing guidelines. We have too many students and too little space. So the in-person instruction is not a plan that we can make work for us. The remote instruction plan, we're all well aware that from March, we were under emergency remote instruction. We know we need to improve our remote instruction in case of subsequent or rolling closures, but it's a model that we have some experience with. We can definitely get better, but we've at least tried it now. So the hybrid is the one that schools and parents don't have experience with. So the hybrid is the one that is not only new to us, but it's also the one that involves an incredible amount of logistical planning. So I think a lot of people are seeing different districts all around us spending time talking to their communities about a hybrid model. And the reason for the focus is this: it's the one that takes the most work. We do know how to do in-person instruction. That's what we've always done. And we sort of know how to do remote. At least we had a test case, but we haven't spent any time on building a hybrid model before. So it doesn't mean that this is a chosen model. It just means in the limited time given to us by the governor, we had to tackle the hardest and most challenging model first. And certainly it is logistically very challenging. The guidance also says that when we are looking at the hybrid model, we are to maximize to the extent that we can while maintaining all our safety regulations, in-person instruction. So you'll remember from the governor's press conferences, his favorite word, density. So they gave us many ideas about how we can decrease density in school. All of these ideas below came from the regulations, and we are using all of them. We will be adjusting our school hours. We will be limiting in-person presence. We will be staggering schedules. We will be shifting designs and having full-time in-person learning for our younger students and part-time distance learning for our older students. So to get to that goal of maximization of in-person instruction, we've had to adopt a lot of these guidelines presented to us by the state. So in case people are thinking about like, oh, but it would be great if all the kids would come back. We also obviously agree. This column just shows you, in the first column, this is our enrollment. These are the number of students per building with the total. So this is as currently structured. So the junior high here, this is the 7th and 8th grade only. So we have 5,842 students right now registered for school in the fall. This column shows you, based on the 6-foot guidance and our team working with our architects doing the modeling for our building so we could look at the capacity of classrooms. These are the amount that our buildings could hold. So you can see in total, we can house 4,505 students, but we have 5,842. That is why we can't bring everyone back every day full-time. We don't have the physical ability to do that. It's complicated also by the buses. So this is a collapsed version of a slide we showed you last time, but these are the size of the buses, the number of students they can carry, how many we have of each. So if you max them out, 78 is 3 children to a seat. So if we were to max out our entire fleet of buses, we could transport 4,374 students. 2 to a seat, 1 to a seat. That 1 to a seat is the CDC guideline that we will be following. So when we do the math on 1 to a seat, we can only transport 1,438 students when all our buses are used for a bus run. So you can see we're going to have staggered schedules, even if only 50% of our families want to bring their students in. That's still more than 1,438 students. So our transportation director is working on those schedules, and we will be able to share those schedules with you at next week's meeting. But this is the complication for a big district. The only districts that can even entertain all kids in person are districts that have had significant declining enrollment in the northern part of the state, in some places in the western part of the state. But for suburban districts such as ours, that's a scheduling impossibility. So we talked a little bit about the hybrid model last time. We called it option 1. Option 2 is a version of it. It still goes with some major tenets that elementary students would be in person every day, K through 3 in their home elementary buildings, 4 through 6 in the junior high school, separated in wings of the building by elementary school. Our 7 through 12 students will have that hybrid blend of in-person and virtual learning. They will operate on a 6-day cycle. Students will be in person for at least 2 days of the 6-day cycle. So we're going to look at a change primarily to the secondary schedule this week. We will be maintaining the 6-foot social distancing in classrooms. We will reduce the number of students in our schools. We will meet the current CDC guidelines of 1 per seat for transportation, unless it is a family and siblings can sit together. And on the models I am about to show you, I want to be clear that these times that you'll see are for illustration purposes only. Next week, we will have the definitive times to share when we work through the transportation schedule. So don't assume what you see on here. We just needed to do it to make the schedule block. Okay, so K6 will be on a daily basis, 6 feet social distancing. So every classroom will be split in half. So a kindergarten classroom would have 10 or 11 students, up to our biggest classrooms would be in 6th grade, and they would max out at 15 children in a classroom. Something that you see here highlighted and bolded is different from last time. Last time we said that K through 3 would be on our early elementary run and 4 through 6 would be on our late elementary run. Our transportation director is coming up with some interesting models that may change that. So what we do want to say is their instructional day itself will be shorter. It will be a 5-hour instructional day. That does not include the time for arrival and time for dismissal, but the amount of time that they are in a classroom in the presence of a teacher will be 5 hours. We have the day divided up, so each student in the elementary level will see their classroom teacher for 2.5 hours each day, and then they'll have special area classes or supplemental instruction as we had spoken about for 2.5 hours. So I'm going to show you now a snapshot of one building just so you can get a sense of what it looks like. Okay, so this is a lot, so let me orient you to this. This happens to be Blue Creek because they're alphabetically first, so it's easy. I just screenshotted this from our shared drive. So this is a kindergarten class. Sosiak is the name of the teacher. So her class, let's say it's 20 students, will be divided into an A group and a B group. Each group would have 10 children. So these A plus B equals her whole class. So you can see, as we said, we divided the day into an AM and a PM. Remember, these may not be the exact times. And so in the morning, Group A would have Ms. Sosiak, their classroom teacher. Their classmates across the hall or next door would have Ms. Walton, who is a math specialist, and they would have their art teacher for an art lesson, so that they would have extra time working on math facts, working on their math for the whole class with a math specialist, and then they would have an art lesson. It would reverse in the afternoon, so this group would then have the same opportunity to work with the math specialist and an art teacher, and this group would now have the opportunity to work with Ms. Sosiak. If we were to go down, that's day one. On day two, this group would now have Ms. Sosiak in the afternoon. They had her in the morning on day one, so we'll split that up. Now this group will get their teacher in the morning. And they will have Ms. Anderson, who is a reading specialist, so she'll be able to provide extra instruction in reading. And they will have their PE class. So while they're doing that, this group is with Ms. Sosiak, and then in the afternoon it reverses. You can see down here, they get the reading specialist again in music, and so on and so forth. I won't look at this case section because I cut it off, so let's go over here to grade 1, which is a little bit easier to see. So here's 2 different sections of grade 1, teacher Capone, teacher White. So Ms. Capone's class has been grouped into an A section and a B section. Same thing as with kindergarten, classroom teacher. This is social emotional learning, so they will have either the counselor or the school psychologist who will push in to do social emotional and group community building activities. Ms. Rogers is a teacher assistant in the building, so she will supervise students while they are doing some of their centers-based work. That could be related to their ELA practicing their ELA skills and reading, their math skills, or even some of their social studies lessons that will be on the computer for them. Again, they would flip-flop. Day 2, Ms. Labello would push in. She is a reading specialist. They would have PE and then Ms. Capone in the afternoon. And the B group would get Ms. Capone in the morning with the reading specialist, PE in the afternoon. Here's library, art, music. And basically it looks like this for every building, and it just keeps rotating through all of the sections for the K through 3 building schedule. And it is on a 6-day rotation. I just cut it off so it would, you could see it on the slide.
Ms. Skeels, we have some, do you want to go through the 4 through 6 schedule and then take some of the questions that have been building up in the chat, or how would you like to handle this?
No, we can go through some of these questions while we're right on the screen.
Okay, so I think I want to go back to, I know that there was a question on masks still. Renee, yes. If students in the class aren't wearing masks, will other families be notified? That's going to be a difficult question. I mean, we're going to have to look at student privacy and protecting that. in terms of the specific notification there. I think I'm going to have to get back.
I think the softball game might be getting over.
Oh, good. So has state ed clarified whether or not masks are required or optional? I think masks are required, okay, if you are not with, if you're in proximity of less than 6 feet. We are requiring them with mask breaks at all time within the building, in an abundance of caution.
Some of the other questions I can see in here, we did not show the breaks that will be built into the day on this overview, because this is just our staffing overview, but students will have multiple breaks throughout the day whenever possible. Hopefully the weather in the Great Northeast is good to us in the fall and in the early winter. We will be taking kids outside because that's good for them. They can socially distance more so that they can have a recess break and a mask break, which will be helpful. In this model, lunch will be provided to students. Our food service director is working on what she calls a grab and go model, so that lunch can be delivered to the students, but it will be more of what we would call a prepared bag lunch, if you will, but it will meet all of the guidelines for nutrition and safety. There will be multiple breaks throughout the day, recess breaks, etc. And we will, right from the beginning, work with our youngest learners to help them understand the masks. Ms. North, our Loudonville principal, has already worked on some social stories that we can use to help explain in ways that are age appropriate and engaging to our students how to wear masks, why we wear masks, why they are important. So all of that will be built in during the day. One of the questions is what happens if a child doesn't have a mask on? So I think we can figure that there will be a point, particularly with the young learners during the day, where their mask slips off, something happens and they take their mask off and we have to put a new mask on them. We will have extra masks in every room. But that is one of the reasons that we are also doing the 6 feet apart. So the guidelines say there are 3 health and safety protections. One is 6-foot social distancing, one is wearing a mask, and one is a plexiglass shield, like a 3-part shield in front of each child. The state is recommending that we do one of those in an abundance of caution to be as safe as we can be for everyone involved. We are doing 2. So that way, if the mask does come off for a brief moment and we have to remask a child, we still have the next measure in of the 6-foot social distancing. So we feel like the combination of both helps us to be as safe as possible in our circumstances.
Ms. Skeels, there's a question on what does a mask break look like? And I think Mr. Barden has some experience with that in the extended year. Mr. Barden, you want to contribute there?
Sure. This looks different at every level. I mean, we have K-12, actually K through 21 students in our program. So it's really about looking at the levels and looking at the needs of the students. And then what we have been doing is just scheduling in those breaks. So once, a mid-morning time where students can, keep socially distanced in the classroom, but let down their masks once they're, when they're at their desks. So it's really about finding the appropriate times throughout the day to take those breaks. And it looks different at every level for us right now.
Tabasam has a question here. We're notified when there's a strep infection or a peanut allergy. Do we have the right to know if someone is not wearing a mask? Before I make a statement on that, I would have to do a consult on that. So I certainly can get back to you on that. Let me see here. Paloma, I think we should map out how many teachers each student would have contact with each week and vice versa. Yes, good idea. This is important for potential understanding total contacts and potential issues if there's a case. Yes.
Mr. Core, can I add one more thing?
Yes.
So I want to let everyone know we've been very impressed with the endurance of our younger students in wearing masks on a daily basis. We weren't sure exactly what to expect, but they are doing a wonderful job in keeping their masks on and just staying safe throughout the day.
Excellent.
So Lisa mentioned PE outside when possible, and if not, where? And we will continue to have to work on that.
Mr. Core, I just want to say something that we neglected to say at the beginning is we are getting these questions via chat from our members of Mr. Core's Parent Advisory Council who are on the Zoom meeting with us. If you are watching at home, you're probably thinking, how do I submit a question? Which is a very, very fair point. We should have put the slide at the beginning. You are asked, if you would like to ask a question, to submit it to communications@ncolony.org. That's communications@ncolony.org via email. We are taking all those questions and we will answer some of those on our website and frequently asked questions. And they will also become the basis for next week's town hall meeting where we will hit on many additional questions as we get more specific with our planning.
So Dina asked a question, increase in traffic, how will we manage that? That's true, there will be an increase in traffic, but there will be less of a population at each of the buildings. Except for the junior high, that will be that will be about the same. Staggering arrival and departure. Right now we are budgeting a half hour for each to make sure that we can do that in a manner that keeps kids safe and socially distanced.
And depending on the building, that may not look exactly the same at each building. It will have the same goal of keeping social distancing. But for example, Loudonville has a front parking lot and a back parking lot and not a lot of space versus the junior high that has a very long bus loop. So each principal, once we get the schedule from transportation, each principal will be working with the transportation director to come up with what that protocol looks like for arrival and dismissal to make it as efficient as possible and also as effective in meeting the new guidelines. So, sorry.
Why don't we keep moving here so we can get through the next
So
one.
4 through 6, as you can imagine, is a huge schedule. And so I could only take a quick part of it. And again, I took Blue Creek because they come up alphabetically first, just to give you a sense of what the schedule would look like. So our 4 through 6 students who would be housed in the junior high school. So this is Blue Creek 6th grade. These are the teachers. So typically they would have 3 homerooms, an A, a B, and a C, Ms. Freeman, Ms. Niazi, and Ms. Silver. However, because of social distancing, each of these is going to get broken into 2. So for example, A and D together would make what would have been Ms. Freeman's homeroom. B and E together, Ms. Niazi's, C and F together, Ms. Silver. So you see how that works. So we've divided the day up into blocks of time where they will be working throughout the day. And what you can see here is each of these teachers teaches a different subject. You know that if you have a child who has hit the upper elementary grades. So Ms. Freeman, for example, teaches ELA. Ms. Niazi, for example, teaches math. Ms. Silver teaches science and social studies. So you can see that here in block 1, A, B, and C group would have, group A would have ELA, group B would have math, group C would have science. Groups D, E, and F, much like the elementary schedule for K-3, will have specials. So that could be your art, your music, etc. When we go to the next block, we rotate the 3 teachers down here. So now this group gets ELA, this group gets math, this group gets science, and it continues to rotate across a 6-day schedule. We have the X's here because we're still working out what that rotational schedule with specials will look like. So we're continuing to develop that and see how we can best build a really robust instructional schedule for our students in grades 4 through 6. But you can see it's comparable in philosophy to what K-3 would be. just with a bit longer of an instructional block to focus on the subjects as they get departmentalized in the upper grades. The biggest change from last week is in this one, the secondary overview. So it is still a hybrid model for the reason that we're putting 7th through 12th graders in the high school, and we certainly can't fit them all. We need 6 feet of social distancing. So this plan is different from last week, and something that Mr. Kaur hinted at earlier in the presentation, that we will be dividing the school day for 7 through 12 into an AM session and a PM session. So our 7th and 8th graders, who are, again, far younger in their studies than 9th through 12th, obviously, they will attend in the AM session, but they will attend daily. So certainly the high school is more than large enough for us to be able to socially distance our 7th and 8th graders and have all of them in every day for the morning. So that gives them far more in-person contact time than our old model. So that was a goal of ours, to try to get more in-person time. Then our 9th through 12th graders will attend in the PM. We've split them, and I'll show you on the next slide, into cohorts, and they will attend in a 2-day on, 2-day off rotation in the PM session. So they'll come in for 2 days with their teachers, they'll have remote for 2 days, they'll be back in for 2 days. So this also results in a greater amount of contact time than what we had previously in the other model. So let me show you how this works. Again, please remember that these times are just times we used as placeholders. This isn't necessarily what it will look like. So we'll start first looking at the top. The yellow color represents the junior high, the 7th and 8th graders. So what we have here is the block, or what we would call the period, right? So period 1, which will have time for students to get breakfast. Period 2. Period 3 is an access period. I'll explain that in a moment. Period 4. Period 5, which will also have time for students to pick up lunch. Each of the classes will be 40 minutes, but you can see that the first class is a little bit longer because we want students who come in, who get their breakfast, to be able to get their breakfast before they get to class. And so that's kind of a homeroom time joined onto that period 1 class, if you will. Okay, so how does this work for social distancing? And you can see this is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. How this would work is, for example, on this day, you can see ELA and social studies, let's say grade 7, and you see math and science grade 8. So on this day, let's say I am a period 1 teacher and I teach 7th grade ELA. I will have, let's say I have a period 1 class and I should have 30 students in that period 1 class. On this day 1, I will only have 15 of my students. They will be in ELA 7 with me. You can see that ELA 8 is not missing because math is not running, because math and science 8 are running. So the other half of my class will actually be with my team teacher, who is the 8th grade English teacher, and vice versa. I will, as the 7th grade teacher, when I don't have class, I will be hosting the 8th grade students. So our students will be in front of an English teacher every day, but on day 1 here and on day 3 here, I would see my ELA 7 class. But on days 2 and 4, they would be with the other teacher who would be supervising them as they are applying the work that I've taught them. So our junior high schedulers have made this very nice cohort model. It also gives the 7th graders a chance to meet the 8th grade teachers. The 8th grade students obviously already know the 7th grade teachers. So when we think about all the community building time that was lost in the last third of the year, this gives us our new 7th graders a chance to not only meet their teachers, but 8th grade teachers. So their model is a little bit different. The access period gives them 20 minutes of downtime during the day where they can have access to a break. They can meet with a teacher. They can get some extra help. They can get some outside time. So we'll have lots of different plans. The counselor could go in and do a social emotional lesson. So we're really using that period creatively because we know that one of the things that's really missing is that community building. And as Mr. Core had referred to in a previous PAC meeting, some of the research is saying it's hitting those middle schoolers who, are really working through their identity and all that very hard, having been at home. So this gives us an opportunity to give them a breather in their day, but also gives them opportunity to have some access to teachers in a smaller setting where they can ask questions and they can also get to know other students. Lunch will be grab and go, so students will have that same kind of a bag lunch. Then, as Mr. Core alluded to, there is a break in the middle of the day where there will be no students in the building so that the building can be disinfected. We have, as you've probably seen on the news, those foggers that work to disinfect large spaces very quickly. So we have already worked through the estimates and how many custodians we need. So the room would be all rooms would be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected before the next group comes in. So the next group would be high school. And if you look here, you can see there's purple and green. So what we're doing is we're taking the ninth grade class, the whole ninth grade class, all the freshmen, and we'll be dividing them up into two teams, if you will, the 9A, which is half of them, and the 9B, which is the other half of them. So if you are 9A, for example, on this day 1 and day 2, you will come in 2 days in a row. And if you look, you will see they will take their full schedule over the 2 days. So they'll take on day 2, we're putting 8 here. That's in the high school schedule, that's a rotating period. So we're gonna put it here at the beginning of the second day. And it will be a stable period. It won't rotate during this time. And then periods 5, period 6, period 7. So over the course of 2 days, you see all your classes and you see all your teachers. Then you'll have 2 days at home where you'll be working on projects, remote assignments. You'll have teachers available for office hours to go over things with you. And then we'll get into the next group. And now on the 2 days, the green team or the B team will come in and they will have period 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 5, 6, 7 on the next day. They'll have 45-minute classes. And so 9, 10, 11, and 12, actually the numbers, if we split them, they are less than half of what we typically have in the high school. So we'll be reducing occupancy by 50%, and that is if every student who is registered for high school did come in and did not opt for learning at home. So in this model, 2 days on, 2 days off, and then if this were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, on Friday, the purple team would be in again, and on Monday, so some weeks will be in 3 days, some weeks will be in on 2 days, obviously, as the schedule rotates through. They will have some responsibility for outside learning. They obviously are not going to be able to get in everything that they would if they were in class every day. So as high schoolers, they will have an expectation to be doing some work on the days that they're not in. And we will next week be able to present you with a schedule for what that remote expectation will look like. But it will be, again, more scheduled, more of a routine, because that is important. We will also, like we talked about in the junior high, we will be sectioning off the building so that we know exactly what sections of the building. So you know that the junior high is arranged by halls. So we can say this hall is in this section of the building, that hall is in this section of the building, so that they will be with their hall cohort during the course of the day in certain parts of the building. And we are working through what the building plan looks like for 9th through 12th grade. And that's something we'll have to have ready for next week. We don't have that ready yet, but we know we are working to find all the ways that we can minimize and make the changing of classes far more safe, right? So we know we're certainly not going to let a bell ring at 1:30 and have all these kids fly into the hall at the same time. We know that's a recipe for disaster. The high school administrative team will be working on that schedule. That's going to be really important, as well as arrival. As they come in, you can see this class is also a little bit longer because it will include a homeroom, because students will not be able to sort of move freely throughout the building when they arrive. They will have to go to a designated location. So all of those mitigation efforts will be outlined next week as we continue to detail the plan for you. Mr. Core, would you like to stop for questions?
I've been trying to answer them in the chat room with my wonderful keyboarding skills here.
Fantastic.
So let me just finish one thing up here, and let's see if we've tried to address a lot of them here. So
is there anything you'd like to summarize for the people who are watching at home?
So I think, there's questions about, so I think, the 7, 8, 9, 12 model is a remote model. It is a hybrid model. So it is a mixture of in-person learning and online learning. So when the students are in school, for those hours of the day, when the middle schoolers are not in school, there will be some remote learning that will be used to supplement that. And of course, for the high school students on the 2 days that they're off, they will be in remote learning. There were questions about what are we doing to improve the remote learning platform. I mentioned that you will be addressing that in this presentation. Mm-hmm. We did share this with our Teachers Association group, and they are working with their members. They are surveying their members. Michaela Brunel had a question here. What is the schedule on the respective morning, afternoons, as well as remote days for 9th through 12th graders? Also, how do you determine whether students are placed in A and B groups on the model? And thank you.
So that is a great question from our student. And how we will determine who is in A and B is something we're working on right now with our transportation department. One of the ideas we have is it may be based on what your elementary school was, because that makes, with as many bus runs as we're going to have to do, in order to not have to go all over the district to transport students, it might make sense to cluster our A students and our B students by elementary zone, because then it reduces the amount of time traveling. So that is one of the things that we're working on. Trying to figure out how we will best do that. It will be a shortened day, obviously for you. It's a half an hour, or it's a half day. So it is about a 3.5 hour day. And then next week we will present sort of what your remote learning expectation is. But obviously, if you're in school in the afternoon, your remote learning assignments would be in the morning, and your access to teachers having office hours would be in the morning. And for the 7th and 8th graders, it would be just the opposite. If they're in school in the morning, their opportunities for extension work would be in the afternoon when their teachers are available. So that will all be detailed as we continue to go on and get this structure even more specific.
And I want to emphasize, this question comes up a lot. We will be providing a remote option for, and I know you were going to mention that, Ms. Skills.
Yes, that's coming up.
Remote option.
Yes.
Dina has a question. Will junior high students change classes, or will teachers push into class? We're going to try to keep the movement to a minimum.
Yep, teachers are going to be pushing in.
Jenna, has any thought been given to opening up an area of the high school for kids who need to come in for non-reliable internet, unsafe home environment, access to meals? We have not given that consideration yet. It is a good idea. Again, the problem is our space is at a premium. I thank you for that suggestion, though. That is a good one. Davis Chamberlain weighed in as well. Will labs be built into science classes? We will be working to provide our students with a lab experience.
Shall I go ahead, Mr. Core, then?
I think you're ready, yes.
Okay, thank you. So yes, thank you for the questions about remote learning. Yes, we know things have to get better. So we had mentioned last time that we're working on a more organized platform for delivery and more consistent format for parents who have multiple children. And, we know you were looking in multiple places and trying to find things. And that's hard when you're busy families and everybody is filled with so many different obligations. We know that we want to have opportunities for social emotional growth particularly if we do end up in a closure again. We know it can't be all academics. We realize how much the need for social interaction is so important to kids, whether they're kindergartners or 12th graders. We are working on our grading guidelines and our delivery expectations and creating best practices. So I wanted to share something with you. Please note that it says on here, building the model, because it is not done yet, but we thought if we showed you where we are so far, you could see the kinds of changes we're going to start to make. Okay, so this website right now is actually for teachers, because if you're a parent looking at this right now, you're like, oh, okay, that's overwhelming. So this is actually for teachers, so don't panic. But we thought that some of the things on here would help you to see the kinds of things we're thinking about. So first of all, just that this visual starts talking about like the different kinds of methodologies that would be used in remote learning that aren't necessarily the same as what you would use in person. So that's just a reminder to us. Over here on the left, you can see all kinds of information for our teachers, but I'm going to click on this link because this is what's important to you. This will not be your page. You will have a much cleaner access, but we wanted to share this because this is the one we're building first, so we can start training our teachers who need training. So there will be a page just with instructional technology devoted to parent and guardians. And so on here, here are some of the things that you would have. So a link to the campus parent portal, how to find your child's account information, how you go about logging into ClassLink, how to view what assignments are due along with your child. That was a really hard thing before, about having to go in and find the Google Classroom and where's the homework assignment. We have also additional, like a Google Classroom tutorial. It's in multiple languages, so it will take you through Google Classroom and go over from a parent perspective of how you navigate it. Depending on if teachers use Google Meet or Zoom, this will also take you through and show you how your child logs in, what you do, what the features are. This is where you could request help for their Chromebook if something isn't working. And then we also will be having on here additional videos. So these will have both articles as well as videos for you to watch as we build this. So that's just one of the features. And then here, if you look, we can show you here, this is helping whether our new teachers don't know how to do this, how they'll set up a Google Drive and the classroom within. And one of the things that you can start to see here a little bit, I think, is the way that we are going to get these to be much more consistent so that they will look a certain way. So if you have a second grader or a fourth grader or an eighth grader, there will be a similarity to the interface. There will be topics, which helps to organize Google Classroom so much more, creating assignments. And then this is probably the best thing to come out of this, is we have found a way, there's a Google Classroom calendar, and we are going to show teachers how they can place assignments with due dates here. So you as the parent won't have to go into every Google Classroom. You can access the calendar and see like, oh, there's an 8th grade math assignment due on Friday. Oh, there's a social studies assignment due on Tuesday. So we were looking for something that would replace the paper planner that students and families have really gotten used to using. In here, these are for our teachers, but these are video tutorials, so our teachers know how to create videos of themselves and how to record themselves. Here is how to create their live online meetings. These are different ways for parent communications, assessment tools. And then here, and I'm not going to play this for you because I didn't share my sound, but if you were to look at this, you can see like, okay, so Fortsbury grade 3, they will have a team website where you can go in and then just click on your teacher. So if you need to see the art teacher, or you need to see the classroom teacher or a reading teacher, you'll have it in one landing spot. So we haven't totally solved that if you have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, you'll have 2 landing spots, but you'll have far fewer than you had in the fall. So from this, we started with this because we have a lot of new teachers this year, and we want to be able to give our teachers as much time to train on this in the month of August as we can. but we'll be making one, again, that's more streamlined, that you saw a little bit of a start here for parents and guardians. There'll be videos and it will go through the expectations so that we feel like we can do a lot better on those areas where we were weak when we went one day from teaching in person to the next day teaching at home. So there are a lot of people working on this, as you can imagine. We have curriculum resources here for our teachers by grade level, so you can click on grade level 1. If you're the teacher, you can see the ELA units and resources. Here's grade 1, here are the reading units, here's the year's progression. So we really have a lot developed. This is our new ELA curriculum website. Here's where the teachers can find out what subscriptions you use that are available to us. So we have really, I think in a short amount of time, because we've really been working on this summer, because we didn't change the model midway through last year. We thought that would be the last thing that kids and parents would need. But this is far more robust than what we had last spring. So that was hopefully giving you a taste of the model that we're building. Mr. Kaur, would you like to stop for questions?
Yes. Okay, so let's see. There were some questions about orientations here, virtual or in person. And some of these questions, we are, I'm not excuse making. We are really working to build the big concept here. So some of these we haven't gotten down to the specifics yet. I don't know, Mr. Chamberlain, you've looked at orientation, some possible orientations here, and you've been thinking about some plans. We certainly could do virtual orientations, and we could have some in person, but again, we would have to be very restricted in our group size for that. We could have no more than 50. We would have to practice social distancing. That would be very specific and limited in terms of how we do that. Dr. Zaida, Casey, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, but the goal would be to get our ESY students in on a daily basis, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's been clear as far as the guidance from the state, and frankly, it's important to us. So we would look to get our students in on a daily basis.
Teachers are going to be provided opportunities for professional development in August, and this will be a big focus of the September staff development days. We will be consistent for in-person and remote grading. Flexibility in shifting between virtual. We're going to deal with this later in this presentation, but we are going to ask our families to commit to one platform or another for a semester. Dr. Zaida, would be nice for the district to post a video on how to work this technology before the school starts. We agree.
We're going to post many.
Christy, good point. We need to be very cognizant of students with food allergies with regard to the eating planning. So we have to really be careful with that. There's no doubt about it. So that has to be a major consideration in our planning. Absolutely. Google Classroom is the platform we're using for remote learning. Michaela wants to know about the 9th and 12th grade grading policy for the upcoming school year. There will be pretty much a conventional grading policy, a policy that you've been used to all along.
Mr. Kaur, I just want to say for our youngest learners, we are also looking at Seesaw as a platform for grades K and 1. It is a lot more user-friendly for a young child to be able to manipulate. It uses a lot more icons and pictures. So we are looking to use that for our youngest learners. And I have a meeting about that tomorrow.
So teachers surveyed about returning. The Teachers Association is working with their membership and getting a sense of where they are, and they are working with us in our Human Resources Department for us to get information about return. So yes, NCTA leadership has been involved in the planning process. There was a question about students in remote learning and socialization and social emotional learning, and that certainly has to be a part of that. Mr. Murphy mentioned student government wants to help in the outreach and orientation as well.
That's awesome. Our students are our best ambassadors, that's for sure.
I think we can go on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corr. So what we did next was, from all the questions that came in, our communications department categorized them by some major topics. And so what we realized is there are some that are very specific to certain students. So obviously we're not going to address those here, but we're going to address the bigger topics. And then some of the things that we were talking about related to health and safety. Somebody mentioned earlier, what happens if there is a case or there's a suspicion of a case? So for next week's meeting, it won't be Mr. Corr and I doing all the questions and answers. We're going to be bringing in some of those expert people to give you the more detailed answers. So our transportation director will be here to talk to you about that. Our facilities director will be talking to you about the air handling systems. Our custodial staff our lead will talk about cleaning, any questions you have. But we wanted to hit a few of them that we felt, I guess, qualified Mr. Corr to answer. So I'll start with the first one, which is learning options. So we know we don't have the space or the personnel to return to full instructional days, as we talked about. So what if a parent is unable to send a child to school? Maybe your child has an underlying health condition. There is a reason why you feel like your child needs to be quarantined. We will be providing a remote option for schooling. So if a family makes a decision that this isn't right for them to come in, we respect that. And the remote option may be staffed by North Colony employees. So that ties into what Mr. Corr was just talking about. We do believe that we will have some teachers who need to stay home, and they may be able to work from home and provide remote instruction. However, our Capital Region BOCES is also running a collaborative so that if we didn't have enough teachers, we could join with them. So let's say we didn't have anybody to teach level 4 Spanish, and we had students who needed to take level 4 Spanish for their graduation requirement. We can work with other teachers from the region. So our preference is obviously our North Colony educators. So we're still working through the details. Capital Region BOCES has just started working on this. We just got some information about it this week, and they will be working on it very hard next week. Parents who are choosing the remote option will need to notify the district by August 21st. So we will have a mechanism. If you are sending your children to school, you will not have to fill it out. If you are choosing not to send your children to school, you will have to let us know that. It's not the same as filling out like an application to homeschool. It's simply giving us your intention so we can plan accordingly, both for buses, classroom spaces, etc. The minimum amount of time for a family to select remote instruction is a semester. So that would end on January 29th, 2021. That is have time to plan so that if everything is going well and by second semester you want your child to return, we would have some lead time so we can readjust our bus routes, we can readjust the way we're using our spaces. So we need to have that in order to be able to plan accordingly. If your child is on remote instruction, he or she will still be assessed, he or she will still earn credit. So they will earn their credit for taking algebra if they're taking it at home, just as they would if they were earning their credit in person. We do want to say at the secondary level, the priority will first be on meeting graduation requirements, as it may not be possible to offer all of our electives with a remote setting and remote staffing. We are working through that. That is, as Mr. Kaur said, kind of a next phase of the plan. So we've built the bigger structure. We're continuing to work on the bigger structure so that we have it for the governor by the 31st to the best of our ability. And then around that, we will start to build these other very important points that you're bringing up, things like orientation for students, what remote learning will look like. Hence why we will give people to the 21st to decide so they can have the most up-to-date information as we are building this this summer. And one of the things Mr. Kaur mentioned is, and I think it's worth noting again, the PAC has been meeting since June 4th, but it wasn't until July 13th that we got our guidance from the state. So while they have been talking about it and we have been talking about it and thinking about it, it was all still very hypothetical until July 13th. So it's really once we saw what was in the governor's plan that we really started putting pencil to paper, which is why some parts still aren't developed yet, because in a sense that month of June was a little bit lost in terms of the level of specificity we could provide in our planning, I would say. I'll stay with this one too, Mr. Kaur, and then you can take the next one. So related to schedules, we're working with the transportation schedule, so exact start and end times are not available yet, but we will have more details next week, and our transportation director will be here with us so that we'll be able to let you know what does K3 look like, what is 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 12. And then these are the amount of hours. So our 7th and 8th graders will have 3.5 hours of in-person instruction daily. So they will have some additional remote work, but our 9th and 12th through 12th will have 3.5 hours with 2 days on and 2 days off. So they will have accordingly more additional remote work responsibilities than their 7th and 8th grade classmates who will be in every day. But that will be the essence of the hybrid, and we will be talking more about that next week as well. Mr. Corey, do you want to talk about transportation?
I do. Okay, so we will be practicing social distancing on buses. We'll be signing 1 student per seat with siblings being allowed to sit together. Mask will be a requirement on school buses. The arrival and dismissal plans are going to be building specific, but as you can see, we are allotting time, particularly at the elementary level, to have that. The traffic flow and the entry plans are specific to each building, and so our building principals will be working with their staff on that. Cohorts, we are kind of breaking our rules. We usually want to encourage people to ride the bus. We are now looking at the possibility of some of our juniors getting driving privileges so that we can alleviate some of the impact on transportation.
Once they pass their driver's test and have their license, of course.
Yeah, they need a license, of course, yes. That is a good thing. Essentially, we have built time into our schedules. We're in our routing schemes. We have these foggers. I think you can see them on airlines. 4 fogger machines that are used at midday to sanitize our buses. We're going to make supplies available, training available to our drivers. Drivers are going to be advised on the protocols of hand washing before they enter into the bus. Basically, any individuals such as drivers themselves or aides who have close contact will have face shields and gloves in addition to wearing a mask. And for they must do a self-attestation prior to reporting for work and have their temperature taken upon arrival. There are some additional questions that just appeared in the chat. Lisa wants to know about band and chorus and the secondary level. These are details we still have to work out. The rules for band and chorus are not 6 feet, but 12 feet apart. So that is a limiting factor. Ms. Keogh, our music supervisor, is working on those specific details. And Brett, I think specials at the secondary level, that applies. PE, we need 12 feet of spacing on PE. We would look at outside as a possible venue. We are looking to offer art. We are looking to offer music. We have to figure out the logistics and the details of that.
Because students will be, over the 2 days, students will actually be seeing their full schedule. So if a student in the spring with their family is registered for studio and art, it's going to appear somewhere on their schedule. So as of this point, we are still looking to be able to honor all of that. Like everything else, it will be a decreased amount of time in front of the teacher, but we are working through specific safety protocols that might be specialized in a CTE class, in a chorus class, etc. And our supervisors are meeting with their regional colleagues, and they also have advice from their professional organizations that we will implement to the letter of the law.
What types of electives or specials will the high school kids be able to attend in person on instruction days, if any? So right now, I mean, we have scheduled with the full high school schedule intact. This is an enormous stress on staff, and so we have to see if we can maintain that. There may be some electives that are not heavily enrolled, and we may not be able to run those electives. We may not be able to justify that because essentially we are being asked to double our staff by virtue of the rules of social distancing. And I think, the decision to commit to a platform for learning is basically predicated on that. We can't be in a situation where we have large groups of individuals moving in and out on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So we will have some flexibility, but right now our plan is if an individual family or an individual student commits to a platform, they would have to commit for a semester. We do realize that the situation rapidly changes. So one thing is for certain, there are metrics. Should the infection rate increase, we know that we most likely we would be directed to shut down and return all students to remote. I think the problem arises if a student feels that they would rather move out of a remote situation into a in-person situation, then the problem would be you could do that at a semester, or if there was a specific issue or emergency that necessitated that. But it's difficult for us to run the program if we have people moving fluidly out of that situation. Thank you, Dina. Appreciate that. Security piece with the district, additional ingress, egress, new hires. This is a different world. And Karen, I think I appreciate you pointing that out. We've gone from emphasizing that we have one point of entry to now we're going to open up multiple points of entry to the school. That is when students come into the school. However, okay, once students are in the school, we're back to a single point of entry. And quite honestly, we are going to be dramatically limiting the number of individuals coming into the school from the outside. So conferences, meetings, and the like, where possible, we would want to do them remotely. They would not be in person. So that is one thing that we would do there. So we're going to have to take a look at that again, because we've kind of reversed the rules on that. Michaela wants to know, what will happen to seniors who take the CEIP internship course? Will they still be able to complete their internships? I think that's a question that's a point that is in doubt right now. So we're going to have to work with the CTE department and Mr. Phillips on that. One thing it would be a problem, Michaela, is that for the agencies who would participate in the internship, they may be reluctant to have more outsiders come in. And, again, would have some concerns about the external contacts and the safety of our students. We can keep you safe when you're with us, but again, you would be off campus and we wouldn't necessarily know how that would go. You know, if CYC or aftercare from Stephanie will be run. I know it may be too early to know. We just had a meeting with CYC today. We are working on it. We are, trying to maximize the potential for CYC as best we can. Lisa, still confused, no need to be sorry, about upper elementary. As a fourth grade student, seeing 3 different course teachers, plus the rotation in if specials when not with a core subject teacher. As a special needs parent, all these teachers, staff, plus a resource room teacher who interacts with multiple students. So again, we are going to be minimizing movement of students. So for specials, the goal would be for specials to come to students. So the goal is to keep students staying put as much as possible. Science research program and the associated college credit, where possible, we're going to try to run all courses, except for those that are not fully subscribed. I don't know whether I got all the questions or not.
I think you did a good job, but what we'll have Miss Coffee save the chat, and we can also use those as well as ones that have been submitted tonight, because next week if there is a presentation part, it will be much shorter, because the focus of next week's meeting will really be based on questions that are coming in. We certainly hinted at a lot of the things that we want to follow up on next week. So next week, our Board of Education, who is watching tonight, will be live with us and the Parents Advisory Council. You can submit your questions starting tonight up through next week. And we know that we want to talk to you more about staffing. That is still a pressing issue. We are doubling, obviously, classes, so we need to really be thoughtful and creative about our staffing, so we need to talk more about that. We did not go into tonight, but we will next week, because we want our medical professionals here, but there will be specific protocols that will be in place in the schools if someone is suspected with, or we have a confirmed case of COVID-19. So we want you to know what those are. We wanted to keep it reasonable tonight, so we're going to talk about that specifically next week. We're also going to talk about extracurricular activities, student support services, which do include those issues of social emotional needs, socialization, orientations, special education, which came up with some questions tonight, and then some of the other logistics around opening schools as safely as possible. So, Mr. Core, you want to tell them about
Yes, I do.
all the people who will be on our panel?
Yeah, and absolutely. So next week we are going to have many individuals here. I will be here. Mr. Hoot will be here. Ms. Skeels will be here. We will have Mr. Barden here. Ms. Dopp, our lead school nurse. Mr. Kraft, our director of facilities. Mr. Stein, our director of physical education and athletics. Mr. Deneen, our director of teaching, learning and innovation. Ms. Nikki Caruso of Colony Youth Center Leadership, our transportation director, Ms. Denise Town, our maintenance director, Mr. Mark Wiegert, our human resources director, Ms. Jenna Bongermino, and our food service director, Ms. Lisa Ostrowski. So we will be here to answer, and we will have the experts in each of their areas to answer questions as well. We are going to have our plan posted on the website as of Friday, July 31. I think we can just check one more thing here to make sure.
And Mr. Core, if I can just say, once that plan is posted, as Mr. Core likes to say about the Constitution, it is a living and breathing document. So it doesn't mean that it is lock solid. As we posted on the 31st, the outline will be in place, but then we will also be spending this month of August to continue to refine it and refine it and refine it. So we will continue to have these weekly meetings to update any changes, and it will be updated in real time we might have to update it depending on what the governor says the week of August 3rd, for all we know, or something else might come up that we missed a detail. So we know that it is a living, breathing document that will need to be continually updated. It will be linked very clearly on our website as a series of web pages, so you can look at just the specific areas you're interested in.
There's another couple comments in the chat here about if we have a large number of families who go remote, that gives us more flexibility, and we agree. And I think, families will have that, as you mentioned, Ms. Skeels, in your responses there to that part of the presentation. We will be surveying families again
Yes.
after they have more information, giving them some time to reflect on their decision, and then we will be asking them to make a decision and look at where we come.
We intend to do that next survey after we hear from the governor, because he may say something that changes everything that goes on our survey. So as soon as we hear from the governor, we'll have a draft of the survey ready. We'll update it, and so it will go out sometime that first week of August, depending on when he makes his presentation to us.
And I think more information about remote learning. Yes, we will be providing that information. The buildings will be providing specific information as to life in their building, basically. So I think that will also be provided as well. Those were a couple of other questions that came up in the chat room. Let me see if I missed anything here. Okay, why don't we go back to, we'll come out of the presentation.
All righty.
So again, it is with great gratitude that I thank all of you who were with us here in the PAC tonight. I don't know, how big was our viewing audience tonight?
It was over 500, Mr. Corr.
Great, good. And it was over 500 last week as well. So I think, the work of our PAC is reflective of the commitment and dedication of our parents in this community. The fact that we have 500 viewers on a summer night when we are opening the baseball season is also indicative of the commitment of our families. I'm just filled with gratitude for the fact that I'm able to serve you as your superintendent, and thank you for that privilege.
Mr. Corr and Mrs. Skeels, I just want to say thank you, and I wish that we could have done this on the live platform for everybody to know that we really appreciate what you and all the administrators are doing for the district. I definitely feel like you guys are ahead of the curve when it comes to the planning process, and I think that all of the parents that are watching this should know that as well. So we really thank you. I know that other people were saying the same thing, but I think that the community should know as well all of the hard work that you've been putting in, and it's greatly appreciated. And I know it's coming from all administrators. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It is a great team effort here. Mr. Deneen made a comment here that the baseball season officially starts when the Red Sox play. I know
just to be clear,
we have different worlds here in the great Northeast between the Yankees and the Red Sox. So just leave it at that. I'll be nonpartisan at this moment here. Any other thoughts or comments? Well, again, thank all of you on the PAC. Thank all of you on the live stream for your participation and engagement in our school district, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.